All right. Welcome to the Rise Up Podcast. I'm your host, Jonah Mitchell. On this show, I do my best to help you rise up to your potential, make this process of losing weight, being healthier, being the best version of you a lot simpler than a lot of us make it in multiple attempts that we've had in the past. So thank you so much for joining and listening to the show today. Wanted to talk about something that is oh, if you listen to the show very often, one of my favorite sayings is we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. And this one is very important for me to remember and something I want everyone else to remember as well. As you can tell from the title of this episode, you know, it's not going to happen overnight. The thing that you want is not going to happen overnight. This applies for everything when it comes to health, when it comes to your finances, when it comes to your family. If we want change, if we want to see something change, it's probably going to take longer than we'd like it to, but that is okay. All right. So there's another saying, I'm probably going to butcher it. It was from a friend of mine who's a coach, very successful coach. Um, and it, I believe he says it happens slower than we ideally want it to, but can can happen faster than anyone believes. So essentially, that may not make sense at all. But essentially, what I want to kind of start this whole thing off with is our perception of time sucks. Especially when you're in the beginning of this process of wanting to really commit to change, whatever that looks like. And when we're in those moments, every day feels like a full, long, grueling, gruesome day, right? When you're in those moments and you don't have the thing that you want, you're actively trying to achieve it, it feels like nothing you're doing is moving the needle. And that's frustrating. It's exhausting. And a lot of the things that we start telling ourselves in our head ultimately sound much more appealing. Why am I even bother? Why am I even bothering? I'm already here. I've already accepted it before. Why do I even still need to try if what I'm doing isn't working? And we need to learn that it's okay to have these things. It's okay to have these feelings. I mean, all feelings are okay to have, but it doesn't mean just because they're okay that they're the truth. Because change takes time. It does. Period. End of story. And there's only two decisions you can be making on a regular basis when it comes to achieving your goals. Am I doing something to get me closer? If the answer is yes, then the first goal is to consistently do something, and then it evolves from there. If the answer is no, if you're not doing something, well, then, okay, the first step, if I really want to see change, is start doing something, right? You either are doing something or you're doing nothing to create change, or you're just accepting the level or the current state that you're in. And ultimately, it's not a bad thing to be in a place that you don't like. It's very good that you're aware, I want to see change. Acknowledge that and understand are if and ask yourself if you're willing. One of the most important questions you can ask yourself is, are you willing to commit to the change? Because a lot of us, we like the idea of change. We like the idea of having the thing that we talk about, but we don't actually deep down really want that change. No matter what we say, our actions tell a different story, right? You can say everything that you want to say about what you wish you could do or what you wish you had. But what are you doing? What are your actions telling you? And there's a hierarchy of need when we want to see change. So this is not supposed to be a doom and gloom. All right. This is not supposed to be like, oh, accept that's going to take time and just suck it up, buttercup. I mean, there's certain levels to that, but I want you to come to the conclusion yourself that it's going to probably take longer than you want it to. But when you commit to the process, it'll probably happen a lot quicker than you thought it could because our perception of time sucks, because we ultimately make this harder than it needs to be. We have these emotional reactions that dictate our behaviors that force us to agree with what we think, with what we feel in the discomfort, in the struggling, discomfort, uncomfortable moments. And then we just say, cool, not doing it, not doing it. So the hierarchy of needs of establishing the change or establishing the routines to create the change that you want, first and foremost comes down to that first question I asked you. Am I doing something towards my goal? Yes or no? If the answer is no, and you check in with yourself and you're like, I am no longer willing to deal with this discomfort. I want the change because I know if I do see the things that I want, I'll have this, that, and the other thing that'll be better. I'll have more confidence in myself. I'll be better. I'll be a better parent, better partner, better lover, right? I'll show up better at work. I'll gain more confidence in my ability because I kept a promise to myself. I grew. That's another thing people don't really understand. When you commit to the changing process, you gain a lot more than you think, even though it's hard. It's not easy. You gain a lot more than just shrinking your body size and just achieving your physical goals. Keeping a promise to yourself, showing up day after day, you change how you see yourself. But the hierarchy needs first is if your answer is no, I'm not doing something to achieve my goals. First step is to do something, no matter how small it is. Step one, something small is better than nothing at all. If we're doing nothing at all, well, we're just perpetuating the same feelings and same discomfort that we've been feeling for however long. And if we don't learn to get past that, your period, end of story, not going to be able to sustain the goals that you want. You could create change without really trying. You could. But if the way you create change is through massive action that is ultimately unsustainable, that you've do a lot of stuff, you fall off, you do a lot of stuff, you fall off, right? That's why it's not sustainable. And if you like something small feels like, oh, that's not enough. Like, why would I even commit to that if nothing's going to change? Well, you're just going to stay the same regardless, and you're going to have a hard time keeping the goal. You're always going to be in the topsy-turvy, but hierarchy need first is raise your floor, raise the standard, and do something, right? Then after you learn to do something, then you can work to improve and make things more ideal, right? I like to break things up into little chunks when it comes to seeing change. If I want to lose weight, right? What has to be different? Well, the only way to lose weight, we know, or I know, and if you're listening to this, the only way to lose weight is to be in a calorie deficit. It's not cutting out carbs, it's not fasting. Like those things help you consume less calories. Calorie deficit. So there's ways that we can create a calorie deficit that don't involve starving yourself, that don't involve fasting windows. If you want to do those, if you want to fast, that's fine. But that's not what you have to do. Like we just need to know, like we need to look at the main objective. If I want to lose weight, something has like the one thing that has to happen is a calorie deficit. So how can we create a calorie deficit? Right? Eat less, move more. That's like the big blanket statement. That's fine. It's inherently not wrong. But people think eat less, move more means eat very little and move a shit ton. So if we know consuming less calories is how we create a calorie deficit, right? We're looking at our routine. What does my daily movement look like? Actually, before we even get to that, how do we currently feel? Do we feel good? Do we feel energized? Because a lot of people I talk to when they're starting, they just want to feel better. They just want to feel more like themselves again. They don't want to feel like they're dragging, right? So get a good picture of how you're currently feeling and how uncomfortable it is, right? Emotional, physical, all the other things. All right. Uh-oh. I had some recording issues, so I might repeat myself a couple times now. But it was just something random that popped up. So jump cut, random stuff, back to normal. So essentially, what I remember where I was at, getting a clear picture of how we're feeling, right? And most of the time we just want to feel better, right? And then we look at understanding how to create a calorie deficit. And when we know that we don't feel or we know what we want to lose weight. The only way to do that is to create a calorie deficit. We need to know, okay, if I don't feel that great now, what I'm currently doing isn't helping, isn't helping me feel more like myself. And there we can really, if we start to improve how we feel first, it's going to make it a lot easier for the physical to start to come. If we focus on the numbers first, all we're going to be focusing on is everything that we don't have. All right. So if we can focus on everything that we can gain right now by looking at our routine, by looking at the categories, right? Daily activity drastically improves energy, drastically helps your body digest and process food, adds an extra calorie burn into your day by moving a little bit more. This can be tough for people who have sedentary jobs, but this is why if we don't feel that great, doing like looking at daily activity, we can start creating a routine that creates a deficit without putting the pressure on, I need the change now. We are focusing on helping ourselves improve how we feel, because when we feel better first, we're probably more than likely going to keep doing those things and therefore be more consistent and therefore be able to sustain our goals for the long run. So if we focus on, I don't feel that great currently, the first category, my daily activity isn't that great. That's an area that I can improve on to help me feel better and help me work towards my goals, my something towards my goals, right? Now, nutrition's ultimately going to be the most important thing to create a calorie deficit, but but it's usually probably the most difficult or second most difficult. Talk about the maybe someone's most difficult early or later. But nutrition, there's like when we look at our nutrition, the lens we want to look at it through, something I've held myself and multiple people, is the food I'm eating primarily stuff that I create, that I prepare at my house? Am I door dashing? Am I eating out a lot? Am I eating whatever someone hands to me? That's not, none of that is bad. But there's a lot of things that you cannot account for if you are not preparing or at least having a hand in the meals that you consume on a regular basis. If you go to a restaurant, if you order DoorDash, they can have their calories on the menu, but there's no one back there measuring those foods. So a big part of what I would a big part of your routine is, how many of my meals are my own? I don't need you to be a perfect chef, and I don't need you to cook everything all at once. I just need you to be really honest in this category and say, how many meals do I cook myself? Cool. If we have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's 21 meals a week, and we can say 10 of your meals you cook yourself. All right. The majority of the time, more than 2/3 of the time, you're eating meals that are not, that you don't know, you have no idea how many other calories are in them, right? I'm not even talking about you need to track your calories, but this is how you break it down. It's like, cool, maybe before I worry about trying to track everything to a T and all this stuff, maybe I should focus on eating more home cooked meals to the best of my ability. You don't have to be a chef, right? Simple meals are awesome. People say that's boring, but just buy different seasonings, low calorie sauces, you can make things taste really, really good. Cooking. And so back before we go down that road, don't worry about the excess calories, because your routine right now of you eating out more than eating at home is contributing to how you currently feel, right? Because we're just looking at these categories and how they currently are. And if we don't feel that great, these things are the reason we don't feel those. So if we improve them, if we start eating more meals, and all I need people to do is really eat 80-90% of their meals, their home cooked meals. So again, out of 21 meals a week, if you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? This number varies if you're like someone like me who eats 4 meals a day, right? But just so you have some context, about 17 or 18 of those meals is about 80%. 80%, right? That gives you 3 to 4 meals, right? A week to enjoy and not feel like you're sacrificing everything. But your goal before you worry about the calories is the worry about like everything fitting together is, let me get to that 80% mark. That's the category, right? Because then we can take that layer deeper. It's like, oh, now I'm eating 80% of my meals from home. Now, what do those meals look like? Is there protein or some sort of color in as many of them as possible, right? Because those things are going to help you feel more satisfied, more full. They're going to help you feel more energized. You're going to feel like you're eating more food than you actually are. And now you're going to start feeling better. Your digestion is going to improve. Your energy is going to improve. You're going to be like, holy crap, this is way, I like feeling better. But now, again, we're focusing not on what we're lacking, not on the numbers. Again, this is a hard thing to do. This is a hard thing to do, but I want to acknowledge how hard it is and help give you that different perspective to look at your routine, look at what you're currently doing and say, this is how I feel, focusing on the number, and all my previous attempts didn't work. This is a different way to look at it. All right. We're trying to accomplish something, but we're just putting an emphasis, we're putting a different focus. So you're less likely to do nothing. You're going to learn to do something, and your something's going to get better. right? Because after you improve improve your food quality by eating more of your meals, you focus on adding protein and color to as many meals as possible. That all of that is a skill. It's not easy for people to know exactly what to eat and put in their body, but you can break it up. It's like, okay, I only get 2 meals of protein a day. Maybe before I focus on everything, I'm gonna focus on my color. I'm gonna focus on adding one more serving of protein, either supplementing or through a meal. Right? Cool. Now that I get 3 to 4 servings of protein, now I'm gonna make sure there's a color in as many meals as possible. Right? That could be fruit. That could be veggies. There's so many ways to improve your food quality and help your body feel better, giving it things that are going to help you feel more full, more satisfied, and consume less calories without stressing about putting everything together all at once. Now, this sounds like a lot. This sounds like a long process, but it just simplifies, right? This is just the first 2 categories that we're looking at. Your daily activity and your nutrition, right? There's so many things you can improve in just those 2 categories. Like we just talked about daily activity, right? How many days a week are you getting some sort of planned exercise, some scheduled exercise? If that's nothing, can you get up to 1, right? And work your way up to somewhere between 3 and 5, right? Or 2 and 4. I like to give people a lower kind of target, 2 to 4, because it's a little bit more realistic. But when we start building momentum, when people start noticing how much better they feel, that 3 to 5 can actually become much more like desirable because they like how they feel, right? So, and then there's your steps. There's finding ways to get steps in your day. Then we move to food, right? Total meals, how many of those meals are your own? Can we get that 80 those meals up to 80%? Can we take those 80% meals and improve their food quality by being more strategic, by adding more protein, by adding more color? And then once we have 80% of those meals with a good high quality protein, high quality a veggie or fruit, whatever, and what all high quality means is just some sort of protein source that's lean, more on the leaner, or actually not even, it doesn't have to be lean, just a protein source, right? If you want to go animal protein, great. If you want to go plant protein, that's great. I don't care. Just get it on your plate. And when 80% of your meals have that consistently, then we can do a layer deeper. Because a lot of times people will see change doing this stuff without us putting stress on the calories and all that. And if we're seeing improvements and we're building that momentum and we like this feeling, we're starting to feel better, then we can take this layer deeper and say, now let's add the calories in. Now let's focus on this. Right, let's see how this goes. How many calories am I consuming? Right? Because now we have we're feeling better. We have a much better perspective on our nutrition. And now we have a completely different perspective on this process, right? Now, another category, right? Another category is stress and sleep, right? How does my stress? How's my sleep? If you're not sleeping very well, if you're always high strung, right? Those two go hand in hand. And this is probably the most challenging one for a lot of people because their emotional stress builds up. No matter what we do, our stress is going to build up. And I'm actually going to do next week's episode on stress entirely because stress plays a big factor. One, we need stress to actually function and live, right? We can't change our body without stress, right? A diet is a stress, a surplus is a stress, exercise is a stress. All those things tell our body what to do and how to change. So we need stress, but most of us live in a perpetual state of stress because we're stressed at work, we're stressed at home, we're stressed nutritionally, we're stressed physically. Right now, all that stress impacts our sleep. Now we're even more stressed. Now our body doesn't know how to change because it's always dealing with so much stress, and it always wants to feel better. Our body wants to feel better from stress. So a lot of us have tendencies of turning to food, turning to drinks to help resolve or feel better from that stress. But then we go against ourselves, right? So this is something I talk about a lot. So ultimately, learning to say, great, what are the current stresses I'm dealing with? And how can I make a little bit more time for me? How can I decide to do something different? Or can I just focus on improving my sleep quality by winding down a little bit before bed? Like everyone gets ready for the day and we get ready for bed, quote unquote, right? But we kind of go from like watching TV, which can be somewhat stimulating depending on what you're watching, to leaving the TV on, to leaving the lights on, brushing our teeth, right? And then we get in bed and we're on our phone scrolling for hours, right? Well, what if we just decrease the screen time and do something else? Maybe do a little bit of light activity, right? Do some reading in bed, right? There's a lot of things you could do. But if you start practicing helping your body wind down and you do that consistently, that category of stress, if you get a little bit more sleep, you're reducing stress and you're going to improve how your body functions. You're going to improve how you feel with time, right? Hydration is another category, right? I usually give people the focus of being anywhere between half a gallon to a gallon of water, because this water, being more hydrated, helps nutrient distribution, helps with energy, helps with performance for muscles and exercise, and you're ultimately going to feel like it will. One, if you're like me, who always struggled with headaches his entire life, and there's a reason why people say drink water, but it's not just water, it's also sodium, because some people, anyway, I'm going to go down a different rabbit hole, but you can just feel a lot better by being intentional with your water, right? So this is four categories, four things to focus on in your routine. They're going to help you feel better. That are going to pertain to helping yourself create a calorie deficit. This is what I want. This is how I get people, especially the people who struggle with not doing anything at all, that all or nothing thinking, because this this is what you focus on when you're ready to commit, when you're no longer willing to tolerate how you're currently feeling, and when you're willing to accept that it's not going to happen overnight. It's not, but it's not going to take as long as you think it will. It only will feel like that because you want change now. But what if it takes 2 years? Right? Let's extend your timeline. Instead of 3 to 6 months to get to your goal, what if it takes 2 years? And after that 2 years, you get to sustain your goals for the rest of your life. Is it worth it? Those 2 years while you're in them is going to feel like a really, really, really long time. Focusing on those four categories and improving them, and increasing your understanding and your knowledge of that over and over and over again, right? Is it worth it to you to take those four categories, improve them, and be able to sustain your goals for the rest of your life? Is it worth it? Most of us would say yes. But a lot of us don't have that patience. We want it now. We think that it just happened out of nowhere, but ultimately, when we get to a place where we're unhappy with our body or whatever we're trying to accomplish, it didn't happen overnight. It's not gonna. It didn't happen in a couple months either. It probably happened over at least a 6 month to 6 to 12 month span, at least. But a lot of us deal with this for years, if not decades. It's not going to take the same amount of time to improve, right? It probably could take a lot less if you focus on taking your energy away from the stuff that you lack, everything that you're focusing on that's like, I have to do it, I have to do it this way, I have to do everything all at once. No, you don't. Because when has that worked? When has that worked in the past? Because if it worked, you'd still have your goals. You'd still have your results. This is what I want people to understand. It's not gonna happen overnight. It's not a bad thing. Your perception of time sucks. I give this example a lot. I ask people to think 5 years into the future. Does that feel like does that feel like it's so far away? And a lot of people say, yeah, oh yeah, that's so far away. Like I've always hated the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, I have no fucking idea. I function on like a day-to-day basis. I barely remember what I have got going on next week, if that. I always forget what day it is. So the concept of thinking 5 years into the future and asking where I see myself, I have no idea. I could if I would slow down and just like think of what I want to accomplish, but in the moment, it's really hard to think of. So the other thing is, or the contrast to that is, think about 5 years ago. 5 years ago, does 5 years ago truly feel like 5 years have passed? I've been out of college for 6 years, and saying that blows my mind. One, I'm a completely different person. But two, so much has happened in that 6 years that I never could have imagined would ever happen to me. And 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no idea who I was. I was in a process of trying to understand what I'm going to do without football. Like that, I was devastated without football. So in the process of trying to figure out that and think of the future, there was no way in hell you could ever ask me or tell me that I would be here right now, 6 years after having one of the most exciting, challenging coaching careers that I could have asked for. I didn't ask for it. I fell into it, and now I'm pursuing a goal. I'm pursuing a career in firefighting. Like, I would have never have said 5 years from now I will be here. But when I think back to it, it doesn't feel like 5 or 6 years have passed. It feels like just yesterday I was waking up at 5 a.m. to get ready for a horrible, gruesome workout, sit in meetings for 2.5 hours, go to class, and then go to practice for another 2.5 hours just to start it all over the next day. All I was thinking about, how do I survive today? How do I survive today? How do I survive today? There's a lot of times where I was thinking about, how do I survive today? And all this goes to say, like, our perception of time sucks. 5 years ago does not feel like 5 years, does not feel the same as 5 years away. So I'd say that because it's, when you accept it's not going to happen overnight, but it's not the fact that what you're doing is wrong, or that you can't achieve your goals, or it's no longer in the cards, is your perception of time. Give yourself the time that it needs to take. Stop putting extra pressure on yourself. Say, I have to get into it by summer. No, you don't. And you're probably, if you have that perspective, you're probably, even if you do get to it, it's probably not going to last. Is it worth to have it? Is it worth to accomplish a goal in 3 months, but it only lasts for another three, and then you're right back to where you started? Like, we don't ask ourselves these questions because we're not aware of them. We're only aware of the discomfort that we have. And then we focus on what we don't, we're aware of the discomfort. We focus on everything that's causing that discomfort, makes us feel frustrated and overwhelmed. And then we ultimately stop trying. We stop doing anything, and then we just stay the same. And then 1, 2, 4, 10 years goes by and nothing's different. Or the usual case is it's a lot worse. But the hierarchy of needs, do something. When you're doing something, your something can get better. When you're better gets better, you build momentum. And but momentum, by looking at all those categories, you start to feel better, and it makes the process of achieving the goal a lot more likely to sustain. But we have to stop accepting, or we have to stop trying to make it happen now. Personal story, and I'll let you go, and I'll stop rambling at you. Right now, I'm working hard to become a firefighter. Truth be told, that was the first thing I ever wanted to do after football ended. I had no idea what I wanted to do for a career, but firefighting was always my plan A. After football ended, I was going to look into firefighting. I had fallen into the coaching space, and that's where I've been for the last 6 years. And I'm grateful that I've done that, because coaching has given me so much that I lacked in my ability to communicate, my ability to be vulnerable, my ability to understand what I value doing with my time. I value doing this. I value helping a stranger to the best of my ability. I never knew that. I never knew what I would want to do. And looking at everything about firefighting and all the awesome people that have helped me on this process that's relatively new. It's about 7 weeks that I've been working on this. 7 weeks, that's it. And I get very impatient. It's like I've done everything I could today, because can be a slow process. It can take way longer than most people want it to become a firefighter. And I've worked hard. I've gotten multiple CPR certifications. I've gotten multiple kind of like incident management certifications. I got the physical exam done. I got the written exam done that most fire departments require. I've gotten a lot done in the last 7 weeks. And I'm exhausted because I've absorbed so much information. I've talked to so many people. I'm about to go on a second ride along and hear from a bunch of other firefighters that have been super helpful. And I could not be a firefighter until next year. And that scares the crap out of me. But ultimately, I've done almost everything I can do. And that's that. That's all I can do. And I'm not going to give up. I have challenges I still have to face. But right now, today, before I started recording, I was sitting here anxious because I felt like I wasn't doing enough. But I've done so much in 7 weeks. And I'm proud of everything I've done. The only thing I can do is keep getting better and keep putting my name out there, keep asking questions. Because I'm about to have every single piece of paper that I need in order to even apply for most departments. And after that, it's like, it's still not guaranteed. It's a competitive aspect. It's a competitive job, because firefighting is awesome. And I'm glad that I'm on this path. I'm glad I've gone through everything I have. And I want it now. But it probably won't happen now. And it probably will take longer than I want it to. But it probably it won't take as long as I think it will. Just as the same thing for any goal that you want to accomplish. Weight loss is the easiest one because most people understand that one, right? This ideally is a fitness mindset and nutrition podcast. So, but all these things apply to the same thing. All these things apply. No matter what you want to accomplish, it's probably going to take longer than you want it to, but it'll probably happen faster than you could ever believe it will. Once you realize your perception of time sucks, what you focus on makes it a lot harder. When you focus on the small steps, quote unquote, to break it up and one step at a time. How can I make this thing a little bit better? How can I start feeling a little bit better? How can I improve my current situation that's going to get me closer? And how can I take my something and make it a little bit better every single day? Because when you're playing that game, instead of the game of I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have this, it's very frustrating. And ultimately you get to that point where we go back to the first question. I was like, am I doing anything to create the change that I want? And we say no. It's like, first level one, do something. And then go from there. So I hope this made sense. I hope you found this helpful. And if you did, I'd greatly appreciate if you shared it with me. Or shared it with me. Oh yeah, share it with me. Email me, find me on social media, all that stuff linked down below. I'm always happy to I always love hearing from you or answering questions to the best of my ability. But if you think someone else will enjoy this episode, please share it with at least one person. My entire goal is to help you to the best of my ability, no matter where you're at. And even if I never speak to you, I hope that I can even make a small impact in your journey. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me today. Hope you look forward to the next week's episode, and I will see you on the next one.